anything like that. That's easy.
He's like this?
I'll show you. No,
Like this? Because I wanted to decide what was on it's not. Okay, arc length. Today's lesson, arc length. Arc length is a portion of the circle's circumference. So I put up a couple of circles with a given radius and angle measure. I want to find the length of that arc in blue for each of the two examples. Can you kind of see I've shaded in blue a portion of the total circumference for each of those? Okay. For an angle measure of 120 degrees and a radius of 16, what's this arc length? Grab your formula sheet. What's the formula for the circumference of a circle? The whole thing, all of it, the whole way around. What's the total formula for the circumference?
Let me find it.
It's on your formula sheet.
C equals pi.
Or 2 pi out. Okay.
She said she got it.
Yes. Guys, you guys have. Yes. I know that the circumference of the entire circle is given by this formula, 2 pi times the radius. But I don't have the full circumference. I have just a portion of it. So let's set up a proportion, like we've done quite a bit this semester, to find what part of the circumference my arc represents. How many degrees are given for that arc? How many degrees were we given? 120. How many degrees are in a circle?
360.
Okay. So my arc represents 120 out of 360 total degrees for the circle. What's the full circumference of the circle? If the radius is 16, take 2 pi times the radius of 16. What's 2 pi times 16? Let's do this in terms of pi. Cover up the pi, because how you get 32 pi?
2 times 6.
For the full circle, all 360 degrees of it, the total of this circle, what would the arc length be if I only had 120 degrees of the full circle, the full 360? Does that make sense, that proportion? Arc length is a portion of a circle, so we can use proportions to find the missing length of our arc. The full circle, all 360 degrees, has a total distance or circumference of 32 pi. I know that because the radius is 16. And we could cross multiply from here. It wouldn't be too terrible, but I think it might be easier to reduce down this ratio. What is 120 out of 360 reduced down to? Before I cross multiply, let's simplify. That's a lot easier to cross multiply now because I'm not multiplying by 360 or 120 anymore. So cross multiply. 1 times 32 pi and x times 3. Well, you're going to get the same answer, right? I've just made it a little bit simpler by dividing by.
Yeah, I was just wondering if I was going to get a different answer.
No. Yeah. So for x, I need to do what to each side? 5 by 3. So my circumference, my arc length is what?
10.6 repeated pi.
Or 32 pi over 3 inches.
Sure. Okay. So
I want to get the exact answer. Let's just leave it as a fraction. You did all that work to leave it in terms of pi and answer as a fraction, so let's just leave it the way it is. I know we could all type it into a calculator and get some weird looking decimal, but we'll just leave it the way it is right now. In blue, this shaded arc has a total length of 32 pi over 3 inches. That should make sense because isn't this arc 1/3 of the circle? So shouldn't the length of that arc be 1/3 of the total circumference? The total circumference is 32 pi. I just divided by 3. It's a portion of the total. Very similarly, let's do another example. Quick one on arc length. I need to find the length of the arc, whose angle measure is 210 degrees, as I can see shaded here in blue. Radius of the circle is 10 inches. How many degrees are in a circle? 360. How many degrees is my arc given by? 210. That ratio of our measures, our degree measures, should be proportional to the ratio of the lengths. What's the total length around the circle? What's the formula for circumference? 2 pi r. What's our radius? And
So 20 pi.
so just double the radius, and now it's what?
25.
The full circle would have a total circumference of 20 pi. So our arc of 210 degrees would have what length? What missing length? Like we did earlier, when I reduced down 120 over 360, what can I divide from 210 and 360 to make this proportion a little bit easier to solve? What reduces from 210 and 360? 7 does?
No, it doesn't.
3.
7 would not divide into 360. I think 30 might divide into both. Were you thinking
I have the.
I can divide 30 of these?
7.
How many times did 30 AJ divide into 210?
Oh wait, 30?
30. Take 30 divided into 210.
This is 700. 7.
Do the same thing with the 360.
Maybe 12.
You don't want to do that? That's fine. I just think it's easier to cross multiply with smaller numbers. So I take a second, reduce 210 out of 360 first. Now we're just going to cross multiply. 12 times x, 7 times 20 pi. 7 times 20 is 140. Divide by what?
12.
X equals 140 pi over 12. I believe 140 over 4. What can I divide 140 and 12? 2? 2 would work. How about, let's get there a little bit faster. Let's try and divide 4 into it. How many times is 4 divided into 12?
3 times.
What's 140 divided by 4?
35.
35 pi over 3, or 35 thirds times pi. That would be a length in inches as well. Into it. Quickly erase this. Let's do one more.
They're just kind of, yeah. They changed the wireless. Yeah. Yeah. Just with it like this.
Last question here. New question, new directions. the circumference of the circle. I have an arc represented by 144 degrees, whose length is 30 centimeters. What I'm asked to find is the total circumference of the circle, all the way around, right? I know a portion of it, 144 degrees of the total circle, has a length of 30 centimeters. Why don't you guys try and write a proportion that would find the this up and cross multiply. I'm given a smaller length, a portion of the total circumference, to try and find the actual circumference. Not necessarily. How many degrees are in a circle? How many degrees does my arc have?
Is equal to 30 over.
Yeah, 30 over.
You bet. An
Okay.
arc whose measure of 144 degrees has a length of 30. So what would the full circle given by 360 degrees have for its circumference? Does that make
Where
sense?
do you think you know? Sure.
Just proportional. An arc whose measure is 144 has a length of 30. So what would the full circle given by 360 degrees have for its circumference? Cross multiply.
I got 105.
X times 144. See, 3 times 360.
That is like 10. I'll show you.
10.
Canadian thousand.
Really just
3 times 36 is 108, and just put one more zero.
Yeah, it's 10,800.
1,080. I think it's 1 too many zeros.
No, because it's 30
No.
times 360.
You said.
I'm not wrong.
All right, thank you.
Well, I just heard subject to math.
You're right. Then divide by 144. 75 1.
Less.
7.5.
One more time. What's the final answer?
7.5.
7.5 1.
It does, because.
Can't be 7.5. I'm hearing different things from people. As people are trying to talk over me. It's hard for me to listen to people answer questions. People having conversations over.
It looks like a majestic 7 with it. I don't know.
75 is like.
It's got to be more than 30, though, right? You understand that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Parker's making up.
That's why I'm thinking like 7.